All right, looks like we are live now. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our crypto night. We have Andrew with us, and today we're going to talk about how we got the future wrong. I know the topic is a bit quite exciting today. In fact, Andrew just mentioned to me yesterday, so I also want to know what we got wrong, lah. Right? And
Yep.
guys, if you can hear us, can you just say yes so that we are at least we know that you are able to hear and see us? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do an update on the crypto prices first before we go into today's topics, right? So, see where are the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin prices are currently, right? So that at least you have an update where the prices is, and maybe Andrew is gonna give us some prediction as well. I don't know.
No predictions. Educational purposes only.
All right. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so guys, welcome. Thank you for joining us in our investors coffee time tonight, and tonight's crypto night. So we're going to talk about where is crypto currently, and of course, we're also going to discuss, what are the future prospects of what are we expect to, what are our expectations towards this the crypto market and also the blockchain technology, right? So we're going to go through that in a short while after I make a little bit of analysis on Bitcoin prices, Ethereum, and also the Litecoin prices. All right. So first of all, again, like Andrew just mentioned, whatever that is being discussed here are for informational and educational purposes. Right, it's not intended as any investment advice. Right, so it's up to you to make that decisions yourself. Okay. Please like our Facebook page and follow us on our Facebook page so that you can get notifications on our live sessions. I'm just curious, how many of you were on our investor studio this evening at 6:30? Can you just type IS, right? Investor studio, or just type IS. I'm sure you had quite a great deal of getting some updates from Mr. Tu, who is the executive chairman of 𝗏𝗏𝘃𝗀𝗏, right? And later we'll share with you guys how you can actually join the investor studio for those who have not joined, right? Because this is where you're actually able to hear from the horse's mouth, right? From the captains of the industry themselves. So in Investor Studio, we actually bring CEOs or CFOs of companies to give updates about the company so that you are well informed of what they are doing, especially if you are investing in a company, right? So do like us on our Facebook page and follow us so that you can get notifications on our investors coffee time daily night sessions and also other important information that we may put on our Facebook page. All right. And if you're on YouTube, also please subscribe to our YouTube page so that you are also able to get notifications from us, right? It's Equity Striker at YouTube. Wow, quite a number have actually attended the IS. Right? Awesome. So yeah, while this is still, we are still taking registrations right now, right? So if you have friends who you think may benefit from this, please share this with your friends so that they too can actually register for Investor Studio. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna go on right now. I'm looking at the prices of some of the major cryptocurrencies. First of all, we'll take a look at. I'm gonna take a look at Bitcoin. Okay, so just a few days ago, actually, Bitcoin tested the 10,000 US dollars level. Right, it looks like a breakout, but the price pulled back immediately after that. Right, and it's now at least it's still trading above its trend line and also above the short-term 30-day moving average, which basically indicates that the trend is still bullish at this point of time, right? But there is a strong hurdle there at $10,000. In fact, it's at $10,400. If you can break above that level, then definitely we're going to see the prices go to the next higher level, and we're probably going to looking at a trend, right? If you can break above 10,430, then we're probably going to look at the prices go up at least another 20%. So that's going to be about $12,000, right? If we can break above that level. If you cannot break, it's probably just going to trade sideways for a while before we see it moving higher, right? This is, of course, valid as long as the price can stay above this green trend line. The support level, right, is currently at 9,200. So if you can stay above 9,200, it's still quite okay. But if it breaks below 9,200, we're probably going to see a bigger correction. All right. But for now, it's still in an uptrend. Okay, moving on to Ethereum. Ethereum has actually gone up. The breakout there, at least, is higher than it went higher than Bitcoin. But because you know, if you look at the top horizontal line, right, that was where the high was in cryptocurrency prices in February, right? So if you look at Bitcoin, I'm showing Bitcoin here. Bitcoin is already there, right? It's at 10,000. It already tested that level, but Ethereum is still lagging behind Bitcoin. So there is still room for it to go up higher, and that's the reason why we see when there's a breakout here on the red trend line that you see on the chart, right? You see the prices start to rally, but it looks like the price is set for a pullback, because if you look at crypto, if you look at Bitcoin prices, the prices pull back near the average. So this one is above the average. Okay, so we're probably going to expect Ethereum to pull back a little bit, and we'll see where is it going to go next lah. But for Ethereum, I think it's probably going to pull back a little bit to follow the trend of Bitcoin. Okay, so for Litecoin continue to trade sideways. Is if you look at the February high, compare with Bitcoin and Ethereum, the February high here is about $84. So like the price now is like half of that high, right? So the price rebounded, but it's not as strong as Ethereum or Bitcoin. Of course, Bitcoin being the leader is the one that actually rebounded the most, right? So for Litecoin, I guess it's since it's been trading sideways, I guess it's probably going to continue to trade sideways, right, between 43.80 and 51. Sorry, 43.80 and 50. Right, that's the range that it's probably going to be trading, because even though Bitcoin prices and Ethereum prices have gone up, we don't see so much movement on Litecoin. All right, so Litecoin is probably going to stay sideways until it breaks out above $50. If it can break out above $50, then it may start to increase, or it may start to continue its bullish trend like the rest of the other coins. All right. Okay, so that's my update for the cryptocurrencies. So today, now we're going to take a look at today's session itself. So Andrew has prepared a presentation slide, right? So he's going to bring us to the future.
Okay, thanks, Benny. Let me just share my screen.
And if you have any questions, you can type it down so I can compile those questions, and I'll bring it up to Andrew. Whether you have questions in YouTube or in Facebook, just type in the comment section so that we will take those questions as you go on. All right. So, okay, Andrew, ready?
Okay. All right. Thanks, Benny, and thanks everyone for joining us. I guess quite a marathon session today, right? For those of you that attended the Investor Studio, right? Right after that,
done.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So thank you for the support, right? Thank you for still sticking around. And those of you who are actually having your meal in front of your laptops or your devices, bon appetit, enjoy your meal. So tonight we hope to be a little bit more thought-provoking. I mean, every time we come on, like we've looked at different aspects of crypto or technology, right? I mean, essentially, crypto is technology, and finance, obviously. But today, I want to take a further step back just to look at context, and we would like to. So, the title says, how we got the future wrong. Obviously, we're actually going to take a journey, down memory lane, right? We're gonna go through some of the greatest technological breakthroughs that humankind has had, and some of the wrong calls that we've actually made and wrong predictions that have happened. So whilst you may not hear a lot of crypto about in today's presentation, but you will see where it leads to crypto. Okay, because essentially what crypto is technological breakthrough. Right. So obviously, as Benny mentioned, today's presentation is purely for educational purposes only. This is not financial advice. if you consult your a professional financial advisor, right? If you need to make any financial decisions. So Benny shared the chart. I think this is from May 11th, so it's almost 4 weeks, right? 3.5 weeks or so, right? And we're up 11%, right, from 4 weeks ago. Okay, so a history about getting the future wrong. Now, what does that look like? That's actually the telephone, right? The one that Alexander Graham Bell invented. Now, for those of you who are unaware, or actually for the Gen Zs and maybe the millennials, millennials would know, but maybe the Gen Zs, phones didn't always come in this form, right? The phone used to be attached to a wire that you couldn't really move it. I mean, you could pick it up, but you couldn't really bring it about and stick it in your pocket, right? So the first telephone that was invented by Alexander Graham Bell, he actually tried to sell the rights, right? He tried to sell the patent to, back then, what was known as the Western Union Telegraph Company. Now, Western Union today, as we know it, is very different. Obviously, they are a remittance company. Their revenues are over 5 billion. They're listed, and it's still around. But back then, right? So when Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, he actually tried to sell the patent for $100,000, right, to Western Union. Obviously, Western Union turned it down, and Alexander Graham Bell decided, you know what, I'll just go into business myself, right? So he set up AT&T. Now, these are some of the famous quotes that was given back then, right? So they said, this telephone has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. Now, back then, right, before the telephone, everything was sent through telegrams, right? So telegrams were, so that's why, so back then, the incumbent, the guy that was in charge, the guy at the peak of their game was Western Union, right? They controlled the market, right? They were the king of communication. It was through the telegraph company, so they sent telegrams. So obviously, Alexander Graham Bell, having invented the telephone, he was just a startup with new tech. He was a nobody, right? And he went to this giant, right, the giant of the day, Western Union Telegraph Company, and he said, hey, I'd like to sell you this patent, and it's gonna boost your business. But what happened? They said, no, it's got too many shortcomings. We can't take it seriously, right? To be considered as a means of communication, and they said, right, so that this device is inherently of no value to us. Right now, how many of you viewers can actually live without your mobile phone today? If you can, I'd like to hear your comments in the section, please, on how you can live without it. Because I know I feel lost without my mobile phone, right? I feel disconnected. I feel like I need to know what's going on. Obviously, we need to, some of us use it excessively, myself included. But it is very much an integrated part of our lives, right? Our telephones. So back then, right, the incumbent, right, the king of communication said, nah, it's of no use to us, right? By 1900, right, AT&T, which Alexander Graham Bell started, they had over 1 million users, right? And their annual revenue was 13 million, right? So back then, that's a lot of money. Western Union's annual revenue was less than half of that, right? So from a tiny little startup, a nobody, right, who was rejected by the most powerful communications company in America at that time, they have now more than doubled. The revenue is more than double that of what was the giant before, right? So obviously they were wrong, right? Obviously Western Union was wrong. Obviously they could not see what Alexander Graham Bell could see. Obviously they were measuring the value, right, of what they thought was of value on that day or in their time, and they never looked into the future, right? So they're being very arrogant and they just pushed it aside, like many large companies today, right? You don't even have to be large. There are many companies today that are actually quite, they're successful, but they let success get to their heads and they become arrogant. I mean, a clear example was Nokia, right? They got wiped off. They got wiped off when Apple introduced the smartphone, right? The iPhone. Okay, so in 2020, right? So today, AT&T has a market cap of 224 billion. Okay, from a nobody, right? They're now worth 224 billion. Western Union, on the other hand, is worth 9.4. So you tell me who's the winner now, right? So Western Union could have been the winner. I mean, look, they're still making 9.4 billion. That's still a lot of money, but but they were too arrogant back then to see the change that this new tech could bring, right? So the numbers show. So I'll share with you a few more stories, right? And a few more quotes that have been quite famous in the past that have actually, been proven wrong over time. I mean, obviously, hindsight is 2020. We look back now and we're like, oh yeah, well, that was obvious. Why couldn't they see it, right? But back then, a lot of the incumbents, however they got to whatever leadership position that they were in the market, a lot of them chose to not embrace technology, new tech, right? They chose to continue doing what they were doing. I mean, Kodak was one example, right? In fact, they were the first ones that invented digital photography. But then, the guys in charge just pushed it down and just hid it. And eventually they lost, right? So in 1885, right? So this was the president of the Michigan Savings Bank, right? He told Henry Ford's lawyer, right, to not invest in the Ford Motor Company, right? He says the horse is here to stay, but the automobile is only a novelty. Now, we have viewers from all generations, different generations, right? And how often have you heard someone, right, who, I don't know, especially when you try to tell them about some new tech that you've just discovered, just because it's not within their paradigm, not within their day-to-day sort of operations, and not within something that they're used to doing, they just shut it down, right? They don't even have an open mind. They don't want to listen to you. They just shut it down because that's just a fad, that's just a toy, that's not real. Come to the real world, right? Now, the crypto world is getting a lot of that. I mean, it got a lot of that in the last 3 years, and even more, right? Since Bitcoin was born, right? They had a lot of that. And they're still getting a lot of that, right? They're not getting the recognition. Everyone is shutting crypto down, right? It's a scam, it's a fake, it's a Ponzi scheme, right? So let's see how history will play out, right? Let's see how history will play out. But these are just some of the examples that I want to give you, just to put it in the context, because I mean, look, we're all humans, right? We all make mistakes, and a lot of times we choose to not have an open mind, right? We choose to just shut our minds, and we're good at what we do, and I don't need to really care about what else is happening outside, right? We choose the ostrich approach, right? Stick your hand in the sand and everything will be fine. But you know what? Technology moves, right? And technology has the power to change lives, right? Not just like it changes societies, it changes how we live, it changes every grain, the DNA of society itself. Look, I'm actually, you can probably tell by now, I'm very technologically inclined. I'm a Gen X myself, right? So technically, my generation, we're actually quite bad at these things, right? We actually don't we're usually quite dismissive of new tech, but I've lived through a couple of of technological breakthrough eras, and I have experienced firsthand how it changes, lives, the way you work, the way society functions. It's even changed politics, right? It is so far-reaching, but we don't feel it, right? It's very difficult for us to feel. So, but because it happens on a day-to-day, and then before you know it, wham! You look back 10 years, how your life has changed. So today, right? Okay, so back then, right? It was just a fad. It was just a novelty, right? The horse is here to stay. Look, obviously, there's still horses around, right? But these days, it's probably more as a recreational and well, gambling, I suppose. And today, there are too many cars, obviously, right? And obviously now, we're even talking about self-driving cars, right? So that's the next evolution. Here's an interesting one. So we have Paul Krugman, right? He is a Nobel Prize. So it is very difficult to win this prize. You have to be brilliant, like top of the top in terms of your mind, right? You have to be really smart. So he's a Nobel Prize winning economist. So Paul Krugman, he's an American. So let me just read the quote out to you. The growth of the internet will slow drastically. As the flaw in Metcalfe's law, which states that the number of potential connections in a network is proportional to the square of the number of participants, becomes apparent, most people will have nothing to say to each other. So by 2005 or so, it will become clear that the internet's impact on the economy has been no greater than the fax machines. So now this is a Nobel Prize winning economist, right? Now he's supposed to be the smart, creme de la crop, supposed to be the smartest of the smart now. And he predicted that the internet will be, the impact of the internet will be no greater than a fax machine. He talked about how that the growth of the internet will eventually slow down, and people will run out of things to say to each other. Now, how wrong he was, right? I mean, look at us. We're, if you tuned in last night, I think it was last night, right, when Peter was on, and we were talking about the growth of data storage, the growth of hard drives, right, where everything that you do online, every message that you send, every message that you receive, every picture and every video that you watch, everything is now stored forever, right, on the internet. And have we run out of things to say? No, I think in fact the rate of growth of data is exponential, right? So obviously the more need for hard drives and storage. So look, here's another classic example, right? So why? So this I can't really pronounce his name. I think he's from Iceland, right? 𝗚𝗲𝗢𝗃 𝗏𝗡𝗔, right? So he's a professor, right, at an Icelandic university, and he says, so look, we as humans, right, we tend to view technology based on past usages, right, on the past usages, but not on future potential. Now, just let that sink in for a little while, right? Whenever you give me a new gadget, right, and I look at it, I was like, well, what am I going to do with it? Like, what can I do with it today? Nothing, obviously, but what is its potential, right? We don't think about the future potential, right? I mean, for example, if I gave you 1 Bitcoin today, I guess, would you take it? Benny, if I gave you 1 Bitcoin today, will you take it?
Of course, Bitcoin is $10,000. I'll definitely take it, man.
Now, obviously, then you're like, well, what can I do with it, right? Well, today, well, actually, you can actually do a lot with it, right?
Maybe if you ask me this question 10 years ago, I would say keep it to yourself, lah. 10 years ago, I mean, when it was started, I mean, like 6-7 years ago, I remembered, right? There's also a friend who's a tech guy like you, right? And he's also talking about Bitcoins. I think that was like 5 or 6 years ago. And I'm not a tech person, so it's just probably just another internet money which probably got no value in the long term, right? So I did not invest. So the guy, I think, made quite good money, lah. And when Bitcoin was a few $100, right? And I look at it now. So if you ask me, 5 years or even 6 years ago, I would probably say no. But if you give it to me now, show me the money, man. Show me the money.
That's right. But but if you look in the scheme of things, right? You walk in the shop, right? You walk into 7-Eleven, and you probably say, "Hey, can I pay with Bitcoin?" You're like, "Hey, you know what? Are you crazy? Like, are you what? No, give me ringgit, right?" That's because the proliferation of this technology hasn't hit the masses yet. Obviously, I mean, just like if you think about back then, the Western Union Telegraph Company, they didn't see any value with the telephone because look, you've got one telephone, and then like, what am I going to do with it, right? But they couldn't see the potential of, well, what if every household was hooked up and every household had a telephone? The value of that jumps exponentially because it's that network effect, right? The value of it is the number of users times the number of users, right? Because that's how many connections you can make. So similarly with crypto and Bitcoin today, you can't I mean, I can't walk into a shop, I can't go into a coffee shop and try to pay for my asam laksa with Bitcoin. Or maybe I can. I don't know, right? Maybe the more progressive ones they'll accept, right? And so this is still obviously very new tech, and obviously a lot of people view it based on the past usages, right? So it was like, well, what am I going to do with Bitcoin today? Like, I can't do anything with it, so it's of no use to me. But they never think about, well, what's the potential? What happens when everybody has a Bitcoin wallet and everybody understands what Bitcoin is and they start using it, right? And then demand for Bitcoins go up. Well, I mean, the Bitcoin and other cryptos, obviously. Now, the other quote that I got is that he says, "We have the arrogance of the present," right? So, as I said, some like the Western Union Telegraph Company, they were quite arrogant, right? And they said it was of no use, it was a novelty, it was a fad. That banker was saying that, hey, look, horses are gonna stay forever. So these are some pretty arrogant views, right? Now, but you would not have said that they were crazy if you had lived back then, right? In those times, you're like, well, yeah, horses are normal. What? But then how would you like to walk down a street where, like it just smelled of horse shit, right? Like it was just horse shit all over down the entire street, because that's exactly what the streets were like, right? It was lined with everyone traveled on horses, right? And horses would shit everywhere, obviously. And so that is the norm, right? And today, what we think of as the norm is cash, credit card, right? Maybe your Grab Pay and your online transfer and all that. But you don't think about, well, what else can this technology do? Like, what is the potential, right? I mean, before 4G came was rolled out globally, right? You couldn't even stream your YouTube video, right? This live stream would not have been possible, right? You'd have to sit at home in front of your device, right? In front of your laptop or in front of your PC, and then watch it from there. You wouldn't be able to commute, or you'd be have it on your mobile phone and actually watch it. That would not have been possible. So and so that value didn't, or that didn't click until suddenly 4G was available. And the amount of adoption that happened then, it wasn't a linear adoption, it was an exponential adoption, because suddenly all the pieces of the puzzle clicked. Now, Bitcoin is only one piece of the puzzle, obviously, right? So are we being arrogant? Do we have the arrogance of the present? I mean, that's something we all have to ask ourselves, right? And do we continue to view technology based on the past, right, or the present? What about its potential? Have we thought enough about it? I mean, I know I speak to a lot of people who immediately dismiss, right? When I mention the word crypto or Bitcoin, oh, no, don't talk to me about it. It's a scam. It's a scam. I was like, okay, I will not waste my energy then, right? You stay in the Stone Age if you want to, but that's fine by me.
Yeah, I just also want to share this experience, because we are in the MCO, and one day I was out to go and tapao some cakes lah, right? And you know what, that bakery don't accept cash, because MCO they actually don't accept cash. So even if I have cash, right, I can't buy the cake, right?
Oh, really?
I need to have either a credit card, and lucky I brought my wallet so I can actually pay with the QR Pay and Maybank, right? And so any of the payment, you can pay by Boost, you can pay by GrabPay, you can pay by credit card, no cash. I was so surprised. I mean, I got money here with me and they don't accept it. So that's that's where, I mean, you can be arrogant about it. If one day cash is not accepted, then we know. And this is like a sign, and these things can happen, and people are starting to accept this, right? That it's going to be a new norm where it's going to be cashless, right? And I think China has done quite a lot on their even retail. They are starting to do mostly cashless right now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and of course, Bitcoin and crypto will be the next level, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, there's that joke, right? If you're spending cash in China, you must be a tourist, because all the locals will use the WeChat Pay and the Alipay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got inspired to talk about this topic tonight from a guy named Ray Kurzweil. He was an ex director of engineering at Google. Now he also predicted stuff like Wi-Fi, iTunes, wearables, right? Like the wearables, even cloud computing, right? Now he predicted all this 10 years before it actually happened, right? So he had a 86% hit rate, right? So this was how we came to the title of tonight's presentation. Okay, so we're at this point where and obviously if you Google for Ray Kurzweil, you will find that he's actually a futurist, right? That's his job. Like, he predicts the future. And some of his predictions are actually quite scary if you read about it. Okay, this brings me to my so there's a story going around, right? About the inventor of chess. I don't know how many of you have actually heard the expression the second half of the chessboard, right? But there's a story that goes it goes like this. The inventor of chess, he invented it and then he brought it to his ruler, right? Now, some say it was China, some say it was India. I don't know where it was invented, right? But the inventor of chess brought the chess game to his ruler at that time. So the ruler looked at it and he absolutely loved the game. He says, "Oh wow, you had the king and the queen, and then you had its subjects before it, and it was about the game was all about strategy, right? It was about how to strategize and all that. And he thought it was really clever." And so he wanted to reward the inventor of chess. And so he said to him, "Look, you can have anything you want in my kingdom. What do you want to have?" And the inventor of the chess says, "Oh, look, I'm a very humble man. I don't need much. But if you can just give me 1 grain of rice on each square, and then on the second square you double it, and then on the third square you doubled it, right? So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, right? And then and that's all I need." And then they got into a bit of a tiff. Well, not so much a tiff, but the emperor said, the ruler said, no, that's too little. You have to ask for something else. Do you want gold? Do you want land? What do you want? Just no, Your Highness, I just the 1 grain of rice on each square and just double it as we move along the chessboard. Now, for those of you who are chess aficionados, it's an 8x8 board, right? So there's 64 squares, right? So they now by the time they had reached the 32nd square, right? The amount of rice would have been equivalent to a field, right? So those rice paddy fields, the amount of rice up to the second half of the board would have reached is the amount of a whole rice paddy field. And then the emperor started getting worried. So by the time they got to the end, they started calculating. Then by the time they got to the end of the chessboard, the amount of the amount of rice would have been the size of Mount Everest, right? So so that story is to help us illustrate, right, how technology works. So okay, so obviously the emperor went bankrupt, right? And by the time you got to the second half of the chessboard and you got to the end, right? It would have been 9.2 quintillion grains of rice. Now quintillion, so you got million, billion, trillion, right? Which is where the Federal Reserve's deficits are at, trillion. Then you go to quadrillion and then quintillion, right? So 9.2 quintillion grains of rice. That's just crazy amounts, right? Now, and that's the thing, right? You start off with 1 grain, and how do you end at 9.2 quintillion, right? Now, so for those who are in tech, there's a law called Moore's law, right? Moore's law, where they're saying that the amount of computing or computing power doubles every 18 months, right? 18 months. So so hence the doubling, right? The doubling effect. And when it comes to technology, right? Technology is the same, right? You don't feel it, but suddenly when you hit the second, when you get to when technology builds up to the second half of the chessboard, right, then it goes exponential. And when it goes exponential, even for a tech guy like myself, a tech aficionado like myself, I every night I go to bed. Now I go to bed really late because I need to read a lot and keep up. And obviously I have to try to be a practitioner, so I'm trying out stuff, right? You go to bed thinking, oh my gosh, I don't know enough, but I think I'm okay, right? I've caught up. And the moment you wake up, right, and I catch up on my gazillion tweets and messages and all that, and I realize, wow, someone's just invented something new again, while I was sleeping. So you're constantly trying to play catch up. You're constantly trying to figure out what is happening, right? And so Kurzweil also he put out this graph, right? Now he says, now although technology grows in an exponential manner, right, we humans live and we experience things in a linear manner. So if you see this, right, now this graph here, it says this is the growth of internet hosts. That means servers on the internet, right? You can see it growing exponentially, right? The number of hosts. But how we experience it, we just see it as a gradual and a linear growth, right? That's how we humans experience things. But the tech itself is right. The technology of what it can do is actually doubling. So it's on an exponential growth rate, while we feel it is only linear, right? So there's a VC company out there called Andreessen Horowitz. So it's between Ben Horowitz and Marc Andreessen. Marc Andreessen was actually the first guy that they invest only in tech, right? Because they themselves are from that space. So they were the early investors in Skype, Facebook, Twitter, Airbnb, Lyft, Stripe, right? And this is some of their investments, right? How much money they invested, and they were early, right? They were so early into certain tech that people didn't think that the tech was going to make it. They didn't think much of that tech, because again, they were measuring it based on present and past usage, right? They never thought about the potential. So look, if you take anything away tonight, I guess it's your mindset, right? If you can just change the way you view, next time your son or your daughter or someone younger comes up to you and tries to show you this new tech that they're very excited about, don't ignore it. Don't push it down and say, that's nothing. That could potentially be your next unicorn, right? That could potentially be the next unicorn. And if you ever do get into a position where you are in a position where you have the opportunity to invest some money in it, look, obviously, these are high risk investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? But you may want to take note, right, and just look a little bit deeper into it. You never know what you might find. You never know what might unveil itself, right? Rather than shutting off your mind, there's a famous saying, right? Your mind is like a parachute. It's best. It is best when it's open, right? It works best when it's open. So have an open mind, right? So obviously the next one just shows, how much they made from each of those deals, right? They made 7 billion from Zynga. Zynga, for those who in the early days remember a game called Farmville. Yeah, I think that those are the guys that created Farmville, right? Fusion.io, Facebook, right? They made 18.4 billion. So these were some of their key exits, right? That's how much money they made over time, right? Lyft, right? 24 billion. GitHub. So this is just a graph to show, what their investments have been and how much they've made from it. Look, obviously, these were the winners. They probably have 9 times the amount of losers, but that's the thing with tech and VC type of investments, right? If you have X amount of money, you would place your money into 20 startups, right, or 20 companies, and then you only need 1 or 2 to actually succeed, and it'll cover all your losses and give you your multiple. So that's kind of VC style investing, right? Which is different from the secondary markets that that's the stock market and all that. So today, right, 30% of 𝗚𝗏𝘃𝗀𝗀𝗀 seed investments are actually in crypto. 30% is not a small amount, right? 30% is quite big. And in crypto-related businesses, right? So April this year, this 2 months ago, right? Because we're in June now. 𝗚𝗏𝘃𝗀𝗀𝗀 launched their second crypto VC fund. I think they raised, I can't remember, quite a few $100 million USD. Quite a large amount, right? So this is their second crypto fund. So in 2006, we entered the second half of the chessboard, right? Of digital technology. So the US started tracking technology as a category for corporate investments from 1958, right? So if we took Moore's law and it doubled every 18 months, right? So we would have roughly hit it around 2006. So so it would have doubled 32 times, right? From 1958 to about 2006. So that's your first half of the chessboard. Now, try to just look back, right, to 2006 to where we are today. From 2006 to now, I don't know if you feel that technology, I mean, look, obviously as humans, we experience it linear, right? We experience technology linearly, but the amount of technology that has come is now speeding up. It's even faster. Like I said, I go to bed thinking I know enough, right? Well, not really, but then I wake up knowing even less because someone has invented something new or a new way of doing things, or just a new gadget, right? And it's going to change lives, right? And so can you imagine? So that the first half of the chessboard took 48 years, right? And then from 2006 until now, right? Obviously, Bitcoin came about 2009, right? From 2009 to now, it's 11 years. And you will also find that a lot of the most brilliant minds. So this whole crypto space has attracted a lot of the most brilliant minds, and they've come into the crypto space, right? And so, right, from now on, it's like enjoy the ride, right? It's going to be exponential. The amount of things that's gonna come in, right? Technologically, it's gonna change the way we live. It's gonna change society. Now, can you imagine? If I go back to this graph here, and you see the number of how the growth. This first chart here, the growth. This is the number of hosts on the internet, right? So meaning the number of computers, the number of servers on the internet, it's just gone It's just gone crazy, right? Now, from here on out, it's going to be a straight line, right? It's just going to go straight up. Now, why? Because if you think about it, now most of you probably don't know this, and you've heard about this for a very long time. IoT, right? Internet of Things. So what's IoT? IoT means every single electronic device, mechanical device, will be a dot on this line, right? So it'll be so all of a sudden now, and I know this for a fact, right? So a lot of the appliance manufacturers, right, they are all working with each other. All the appliance manufacturers are working with each other so that there's a common language that they can speak with each other's appliance, right? So when all of a sudden all the appliances, just look around your house, right? Your light, your fan, your AC, right? Your fridge, right? All the your washing machine, your TV, is all of a sudden all those appliances in your house goes online, right? Multiply that by the number of households around the world, you're gonna see a jump in the number of hosts on the internet, right? Now, what does that mean? Well, this means, look, when I talk about potential, this can mean so many things, right? You have a fridge that realizes that your milk is going, you know, you've got you don't have enough milk, it's time to order milk. It automatically notifies Jaya Grocer that you need more milk to be delivered, and it pays via some crypto, right? It pays for it, and then the guy delivers it to your doorstep, right? You can have your TV. Your TV knows that, you know, certain things are about to go kaput. So before it goes kaput, it might send a notification to Samsung Malaysia to notify them that, look, this component, its estimated, you know, life expectancy is maybe 3 months, and you need this part. You might automatically check for that part to see if they have that in stock. If not, it automatically puts in an order so that Samsung delivers it to their service delivery guy, and then the guy will then come knock on your door and then go and fix your TV, right? So all these devices are suddenly going to go online. Now, like I said, you know, crypto is only one part. It is only one part of the equation of what's about to happen. But like I said, this is transformational. It's going to change lives. Even just for us, right? All of us right now, we're on lockdown. We're sitting at home. We're like, you know, a lot of people can't function, right? They can't go to work. That's because they were not digitally ready, right? But this digital transformation thing, it's happening, and suddenly it's sped up, right? Because everyone can't go to the office, so they have to figure out how they're going to do it from home. So all these things are going to kick in and happen, and when that happens, you don't want to be caught off guard, right? And from an investment perspective, obviously, if you already see the trend, then you start looking out for companies that you know where demand is going to be huge, right? And besides companies, you know, you may want to allocate, this is not financial advice, you may want to allocate some crypto assets in your investment portfolio, right? Because then suddenly, well, the demand's going to surge. Supply is low. It's just basic supply and demand. All right. And so yeah, so now we're only what? We're 14 years into from 2006, right? So we're just starting that ride up, that exponential growth in tech. So I think that concludes the presentation. And you know, the takeaway is, look, just think about it, right? Start observing, have an open mind. You know, whenever someone, whether younger or older, they come to you and they tell you about this new tech, don't shut your mind off. You're not shutting them down, you're shutting your own mind off, right? Have an open mind. You might even find a gem, right? Okay. Thanks.
All right. Hey, Andrew, you know what? There's not many questions coming in. In fact, I only see like 1 or 2 questions. Either they are, you know, they are too focused on what you're saying. Probably jaws dropping right now, because you reminded me of, you know, the Matrix. You know, are we really living in a Matrix, right? Because all of these things are happening, and that was like 20 years ago. And remember we watched movies like Back to the Future. I talk about hoverboards and all these kind of things, right? And it's people thought it's just a movie, right? These things will not happen, but it's actually happening, right? It's quite scary, like in the sense, like you mentioned, Ray Kurzweil mentioned, you know, if you read again, you Google you see that his predictions are quite scary, like, because you mentioned the name. I actually did some Google, and it's it is quite scary, lah. And also think
Yeah,
about,
it talks about singularity where
yeah,
computers become smarter than humans.
yeah. So I also thinking movies like Terminator, right? When artificial intelligence take over and robots take over. My gosh, I don't know. But I think we are. I mean, you say we are like Generation X, right? I think we are living in a world between the old and the new line. We are, I think we got more stories to tell, right? Our children would not know that dial-up phone, right? But we at least seen the dial-up phone, and now we also see the new tech, right? We have seen maybe our time we didn't see that 𝗘𝗧 𝗢𝗶𝘀𝗀, right? The cow, the cart, right? Maybe our
Yes,
parents did, right? But
that's
all
right.
those three, yeah. So like you said, I think is very right, right? Listening to young people now is important. Even children now are really smart, right? Even my teenager sons, they probably know more than me when it comes to Internet of Things. So you cannot really shut them down, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Benny, I think we have a couple of questions.
Yep. I'm going to go to
Uh,
I think this one question, the latest one, because I think you have presented some materials and is all technology related. So 𝗲𝗔𝗧𝗃𝗀𝗀 is asking, where do you get, where can he get information on tech?
Oh, look, for starters, you might want to just Google Ray Kurzweil. I know he's got a book, right? I think I showed that earlier. I can maybe share my screen again. You can have a look for his book. I mean, but bear in mind that the book is quite scary as well, when you start to go deep into it. I'm just trying to find Ray Kurzweil. There you go, The Age of Spiritual Machines. So that's quite a that's one thing you can have a look at, right? In general, technological trends. Look, just have a look at what's happening around you. For example, crypto. We're still in the extremely early days, right? It's something that everybody who is mainstream, they will dismiss crypto right now, right? But once you see it, it's quite difficult to unsee. So that have a read about crypto, right? Look at Google for what is Bitcoin, right? That will take you down a rabbit hole, because it's not just about money, it's not just about technology. That there are some ideological things built into it, right? For example, it makes you question, the creation of money, or what is money and how do you handle money, right? So obviously, different regulators and different jurisdictions classify and view them differently. In Malaysia, Bitcoin is known as a security, right? They're classified as a security, so it falls in the same category as shares, right? So in Switzerland, for example, it is classified as a payment token, so it is used for payments, right? So different jurisdictions will have different answers for that. Yeah.
Right. Hey, we have a question here from a top fan, one of our top fans, Brandon Lim. He asks you, what is your opinion on the impact of the US riots on Bitcoin and Ethereum trends? Would crypto be seen as a commodity like gold, in that it is seen as something to invest in times of crisis, like what's happening in the US?
That's a very good question, and thanks for the question, Brandon. I look, what's happening in the US is sad, obviously, and the fact that humans are turning on each other, that's another sad fact. But in times of crises, and you have, like, we've seen this over and over again. For example, Venezuela, right? So Venezuela, Bitcoin seems to be the go-to currency, because their currency isn't worth anything, right? So when you this story that I remember reading was that people smuggle in these Bitcoin mining machines, and they run it, right? They run it to earn their Bitcoin, and with that Bitcoin, they will order food online, right, and get it delivered to a neighboring country. They will then go across the the lines right across the border to then smuggle food back in the country, because there's actually no that it was very difficult to get food. So I that was one example that I read. The other one that was quite recent is Iran, right? For those of you, I don't know if you know, but Iran has recently decided to change their currency, right? Because they were experiencing hyperinflation, which means that the value of their currency was being depleted, right? At an extreme rate. So then there was a sudden surge for Bitcoin, right? There was a sudden surge of demand for Bitcoin. And so, Bitcoin is a global thing, right? Where you can purchase it from anywhere around the world. What happened was the cost per Bitcoin actually tripled in Iran, because there was that sudden surge of demand for it. Now, why was there a sudden surge? Look, I can only hypothesize. You've worked all your life, right? You've trusted the banking system, and you have put all your savings in the banking system, obviously. But then suddenly your currency is depleting every day of the week, and suddenly what was worth $100 is now worth 80. Now it's worth 60. So in order to preserve that value, what a lot of Iranians did was they tried to convert that into Bitcoin. And who knows what they were going to do? I mean, maybe they were going to run to a neighboring country. Maybe they were going to they might have I don't know, relatives living in the States, or in Australia or whatever, and they might have bought a flight out of there, and then they had their Bitcoin with them, right? So whenever they landed onto the whichever new country that they're gonna live in, they could just exchange it for the local currency. So will it cause for so what's happening in the US? Look, I look, it's sad to see what's happening. Will the impact be, them all going into Bitcoin and Ethereum? Look, possibly, but I think US is probably a little bit more resilient than that, right? US is the US dollar, the almighty US dollar, right? Everything that all global trade, almost all global trade is settled in the USD. So there's huge demand for the USD. So I don't think the USD would suddenly, collapse. There will be sufficient global demand for it, right? Obviously, like the countries that were in trouble, like Venezuela or Iran. Besides the demand for Bitcoin, they might want USD instead, right? So that there's always. I mean, I remember hearing stories. I've never been to Vietnam, but I remember hearing stories that in the earlier days, in Vietnam, the currency is the dong, but they prefer to be paid. Some prefer to be paid in the US dollars instead. So I think there's sufficient demand for the US dollar. But for other countries and perhaps the younger generation, I think it's that there's more mobility in terms of getting into crypto, right? Like for Bitcoin and all that. So that's what those are some of the stories that I've read and I've heard is happening around the world.
Yeah, I guess not just the US dollar, because I was in I think I was in Vietnam just 2 or 3 years ago. There are a few boutique hotels actually accepting Bitcoins. They actually put a Bitcoin sign in front of the hotel that they actually accept Bitcoins as payment. Yeah, there were just a few of them I actually saw, but those are the smaller boutique hotels, right? Probably run by younger people lah.
Yeah. Well, I remember back in during the bull run in 2017, where a lot of I'm a bit of a car guy, so I always like to shop for cars. So and I was in Australia at that point. I remember seeing a lot of cars going up for sale, and the seller actually wants to be paid in crypto instead of like Australian dollars. They would gladly accept crypto.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question here from ET Online Campus. How liquid is our registered exchanges in Malaysia, like Luno, Tokenize, or Synergy? Do they actually have the real number of crypto that we buy and we put money in? will they have difficulty to meet our return if, let's say, Bitcoin shoot up to $50,000 from the current price?
That's a very good question, right? So I know, I personally, so the CEO of 𝗘𝗧 Malaysia has actually been invited onto our show as a guest. And they also operate an exchange out in Singapore. So I don't know if they do any cross-border type thing, but you know, a lot of these exchanges, like the 𝗘𝗧 Malaysia one, I know that they also operate one in Singapore. So perhaps there's more liquidity. In terms of how much liquidity, look, I guess it depends on the demand and the supply, right? And if you look at the supply, if you actually look at the data and you look at the supply of Bitcoin, the supply is actually very low, right? And that's why you get these crazy swings, right? Like it will jump, 20% in a day, or it drops, 20, 30, 40% in a day. It's because supply is actually very low, and therefore when you get a bigger buyer coming, or there's bigger demand, these quantum jumps in price happen because of that. And obviously there are no circuit breakers, unlike the stock exchange, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. This is from Daniel too, right? Now he says he's convinced. So where should he sign up? Or if, let's say, if this person who's still new, how do they start?
Yes. Where do you start? That's okay. That's a very good question. Now, you shouldn't, obviously you shouldn't just jump head in, right? The first thing I would advise is that you educate yourself, right? Like, you really know what you're getting into. For example, in our ET online campus, right? We Benny goes on, he teaches about technical, right, does the TA, and then Alvin is on and talks about fundamentals. Only once you truly understand what you are buying, then can you be comfortable with those crazy swings, right? Now, obviously, when I first got into it, I jumped straight in and I was just excited about it, right? Then every time it made some crazy swings, my emotions would also look like that, right? Those crazy swings. But as I got deeper and deeper, and I understood more about the technology and more about everything else that's happening around it, the less my emotions were less correlated to the price swings, right? In fact, you're supposed to not feel anything, right? You're supposed to not feel anything when it does that. So I think understand what you're buying into, what you're buying, and once you understand what you're buying, then you're less prone to worrying or having those having a panic attacks. Where, look, before the MCO, we actually have crypto master classes, but now with the MCO, we're all stuck at home. But obviously, once it opens up, or we might even look into doing a master class online, right? We might even look into that if there's sufficient demand. But definitely look, Google it, read about it, find out more about it before you jump straight in, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
We have two more new questions just came in. Maybe you can answer them shortly, right? In a short manner. There are so many out there. I guess he's talking about exchanges or where to buy crypto or providers. How do we trust them? I think the best is to start with the one that's registered in Malaysia, because at least they are being watched, they are regulated, right? Like Luno or Synergy or what's the other one already? Token.
Malaysia.
Tokenized, yeah.
Yeah. So look, I as Benny mentioned correctly, look, if you're Malaysian and you're in Malaysia, then there are 3 crypto exchanges that are now regulated by the Securities Commission. So I highly recommend that you look into, if you're looking to purchasing or trading crypto, I highly recommend looking into those 3, right? As Benny mentioned, you've got 𝗘𝗧 Malaysia, you've got Luno, and you've got Synergy, right? So any of those 3 should be fine, right? You go get in and out from there. Unless your question was about there are so many crypto or tokens out there. Which one do I trust? Which one do you trust? Maybe that's also a potential question. Look, I think the granddaddy of all is Bitcoin, right? And then you've got Ethereum, which is the world's computer. That one has a lot of developer support. So there's a lot of activities happening on the Ethereum network. This is not financial advice. I'm just explaining what these things are, right? So don't go out there and buy any coins that I'm mentioning now. Now, Litecoin, look, Litecoin doesn't show much activity, but based on the data that I've been following, Litecoin has actually been quietly going around trying to get adoption, right? So in fact, a lot of the transactions within the Litecoin network is actually used for payment, right? And so look at the top. These three that I've mentioned, obviously, look, Litecoin is not recognized as a security, therefore you can't trade it on any of the three exchanges we mentioned, right? But it is traded on other exchanges. I suppose you need to look at what problem it solves, right? And when you figure out what problem it solves, then there are other things to look into, like, well, like who's actually developing it? Is it open source? Is it closed source? Right? So there are quite a few factors to look into.
Yeah. All right. So for a start, I think Bitcoin will be a best one because that's the grandfather of all coins, right? You mentioned it's like the US dollar of all currencies, lah.
That's right. And even Paul Tudor Jones. I think Benny, you know of Paul Tudor Jones.
Yeah. He's starting to trade cryptos as well.
Yeah, even he allocated recently. He announced an allocation of 2% of his portfolio, which is in the billions, into Bitcoin.
All right. Okay, I guess that will wrap up today's question. So I'm just going to make a short announcement before we go. Like for those who have attended our investor studio, I'm sure you guys have actually benefited from today's session, right? So please, if you wanna be part of the investor studio where you are able to meet CEOs directly online, then please register at this link that we just on the screen. Or you can also go to the comment section down there. I think we're going to put a comment down there. The link will be there and it's going to be pinned there, right? So let's go there and click the link to register. You have to be registered because this is not going to be open like copy time. Whenever we have a CEO that's going to speak or going to share his information, is only by invitation. So you have to be invited to come to this session. So please register. All right. Lastly, so today we had a Notion VTech briefing, so that's already done today, right? So I'm sure some of you have enjoyed and benefit tremendously from today's session, right? Tomorrow's copy time, I'm sure you guys know about this, right? So Alvin also, Alvin and Andrew talks about being open-minded, right? So we all know Bruce Lee about one of his famous quotes were, "Empty your mind, be formless, be shapeless like water," right? And I believe that this is very important mindset that we need to have, especially for businesses in this time of crisis. All right. So tomorrow we have a session by Management 3.0 certified coach, and his name is Julius Wee. Personally, myself, Andrew, Alvin, and some of us have actually attended his program, and that's one of the reasons why we are being very agile as well, right? And we are able to immediately pivot from the old business that we have into something which is new. In order for us to survive and thrive, we need to be agile. So come and hear tomorrow. If you have friends who are in the business, please do invite them, right? Because this is you won't see him come out very often because we know him. We invite him here in tomorrow's copy time at 8 p.m. All right. So tomorrow the subject is going to be about agility, which is the key to overcoming crisis, and it's all about Management 3.0. So if you don't know what Management 3.0 is all about, join us tomorrow. Bring your friends, especially business partners, especially entrepreneurs. Bring them tomorrow and join us at 8 p.m. All right. So Andrew, is there anything else that you want to mention before we end?
No, look, just want to thank everyone for tuning in. I hope you found today's presentation and that it helps you in your journey, in your investing journey, and that you allocate a portion of whatever your in your investment portfolio. Allocate a portion for some tech. Like tech changes the world.
Awesome. So guys, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good night.
Have a nice night, guys. Thanks.